They had the kind of marriage people envied, until one night rewrote everything.
Behind perfect smiles and quiet dinners, a secret waited. Patient, calculated, irreversible. In a town built on appearances, they were the couple everyone quietly measured themselves against.
Their love story unfolded like a dream, effortless, polished, endlessly photographed. Every morning looked rehearsed, every gesture precise, every silence carefully curated. To friends, they were stability itself, charming, successful, impossibly in sync. And to think, it all began with a simple dinner. Online, their happiness felt untouchable, framed in filters and flawless captions. But perfection has a sound, and sometimes it's the sound of nothing at all. Behind closed doors, sleepless nights replaced whispered promises and shared dreams. Order can comfort, but it can also conceal what no one is meant to see. At work, composure never cracked. Control was not a skill, but an identity.
Secrets rarely arrive loudly, they slip quietly into the spaces between trust.
Something had shifted, invisible to others, undeniable to the one living it. Even memories began to feel staged, like evidence from another lifetime. Small choices, ordinary moments, sometimes they mark the beginning of irreversible paths. From the outside, nothing changed, and that was exactly the problem. Because perfection doesn't collapse suddenly, it fractures quietly, piece by piece. The first crack didn't sound like chaos, it sounded like hesitation.
Messages began arriving without names, without context, without explanation.
Control remained on the surface, but certainty had already slipped away. Encounters grew brief, precise, and strangely rehearsed. Performance ended only when no one else was watching. Questions formed quietly and lingered longer than comfort allowed. Distance doesn't always announce itself, sometimes it simply settles in.
Information accumulated slowly, each detail heavier than the last.
Words once spoken freely now felt calculated, risky, deliberate. Trust doesn't vanish all at once, it erodes in quiet increments. Time became measurable not in hours but in uncertainty. Rituals remained intact, meaning did not. Some boundaries appear suddenly, others reveal they were always there. Identity shifted subtly, familiar, yet unmistakably altered.
And once doubt arrives, it rarely leaves alone.
Curiosity can begin as protection and end as revelation. Patterns emerged where coincidence once provided comfort. Every discovery sharpened the shape of something carefully concealed.
I'm so glad we're here together.
Me too. Memories rearranged themselves under the weight of new understanding.
Silence became its own form of communication. Some truths wait patiently for courage to catch up. What was hidden wasn't chaotic, it was methodical.
Evidence rarely shouts, it whispers in undeniable fragments.
Isolation arrived not as loneliness but as realization.
Shock passes quickly when instinct demands clarity. Symbols of permanence suddenly felt negotiable.
Every second now carried potential consequence.
Familiar spaces transformed into places of quiet calculation.
Danger rarely announces itself, it studies first.
And in that moment, certainty arrived, but safety did not. Some nights feel ordinary, right up until they aren't. A single sound can redraw the boundaries of safety.
Instinct recognizes danger long before logic does. Small disturbances often precede irreversible events. Presence filled the room before identity revealed itself.
Fear rarely feels dramatic. It feels precise.
Words were exchanged, but meaning lived beneath them. Control becomes survival when certainty disappears. The moment fractured, sudden, irreversible, permanent. Chaos does not last long, consequences do. And then there was quiet, the kind that changes everything.
Time did not stop, but perception of it did. Decisions made in seconds echo for lifetimes.
What happened next would define every moment that followed. By morning, the perfect life would be unrecognizable. When authorities arrived, perfection had already vanished. A boundary formed, separating appearance from reality. Every step inside documented a story no one expected. Truth leaves traces, even when intention tries to erase them.
Images would preserve what memory could not safely hold.
Nothing had moved far, yet everything had changed meaning.
Symbols of unity now catalogued as material fact.
Order returned, but only through documentation.
Speculation travels faster than understanding ever can.
Illumination does not create truth, it reveals what waited.
Time resumed its rhythm, indifferent to consequence.
Finality arrives quietly, sealed, labeled, stored.
Public narrative began forming before facts fully emerged.
By daylight, the home appeared calm, deceptively so. But the real story had only just begun. Investigators began where stories end, with what cannot lie.
Every event was placed carefully, revealing patterns beyond emotion.
Science replaced speculation, transforming fragments into direction.
Details rarely shout, they wait to be recognized. Questions would soon carry more weight than answers.
Voices reveal more in repetition than in first telling.
Time measures pressure more accurately than words ever could.
Inconsistency appeared, small, precise, impossible to ignore.
The narrative of perfection began to separate from evidence.
Behavior formed a path, and every path leads somewhere.
Observation often speaks louder than confrontation. Events rearrange themselves into a sequence of intent.
Truth exists at every scale, if patience allows it. Language revealed what composure attempted to conceal.
And with clarity came the first undeniable suspicion.
Suspicion does not accuse, it observes, waits, confirms.
Confidence can persuade, but it can also expose.
Control remained visible, certainty did not. Facts began resisting the narrative presented. Behavior under observation rarely matches performance.
Digital memory does not negotiate with emotion. Sequence replaced speculation with structured possibility.
Truth shifts voices before it shifts stories.
Parallel realities cannot coexist indefinitely.
Pressure grows silently, measured in what remains unsaid.
I believe we need to consider all perspectives.
Emotion lingers longer than intention anticipates. Attention converged, direction became unavoidable.
Re-examination transforms doubt into structure. Consensus formed not in words, but in recognition. Suspicion had matured, and resolution was approaching. Breakthroughs rarely arrive loudly. They emerge with quiet certainty. One verified fact can outweigh 1,000 careful performances.
The analysis is conclusive. Science resolved what speculation could not settle.
Understanding replaced uncertainty. Direction became inevitable. Questions returned, this time carrying evidence beside them. Some conversations marked the end of all ambiguity. Composure persisted, but context had changed. Truth presented itself without raising its voice.
Recognition appears first in silence.
Narratives collapse when structure replaces suggestion. Narratives collapse when structure replaces suggestion. Resistance shifted, not outward, but inward. Denial loses strength when certainty occupies the space. History was no longer private, it was documented.
The case had moved beyond discovery into accountability.
And with clarity came the full weight of truth. Truth does not rush, it unfolds with deliberate gravity.
Facts assembled into a sequence impossible to dismiss.
Judgment forms quietly, shaped by what cannot be undone. Context transforms fragments into meaning. Consequences become tangible when denial can no longer stand. Investigation ends where accountability begins. Decisions made long ago reach their final destination. Public understanding followed, measured and irreversible. The space where perfection lived now held only memory.
Symbols endure, but meanings transform.
Closure exists not as comfort, but as finality.
The world moves forward, even when stories do not. What remains is not mystery, but consequence.
A perfect image once lived here. Now only truth remains.
And perfection, once broken, never returns unchanged. Time passes without permission, but places remember. Absence carries its own presence, unmistakable and permanent. For everyone else, normalcy returned with remarkable ease. But truth now lived in records, structured, preserved, undeniable. Closure is not relief, it is simply completion. Symbols outlast intentions, quietly redefining their meaning. Understanding arrives slowly, long after events conclude. What once appeared permanent revealed itself as fragile.
Every story leaves traces, even when voices fade.
In the end, events aligned into a single irreversible narrative.
Communities heal outwardly. Memory heals differently.
Another chapter concluded, another truth recorded.
Perfection was never the story.
perception was.
What began as admiration ended as revelation. Because behind every perfect image there is always a human truth. History remembers those who seek truth. Stay with Time Vault Chronicles for stories that matter. Next, discover She Trusted the Wrong Person, True Story, only on Time Vault Chronicles.
Subscribe to Time Vault Chronicles for more mysteries.